thing I feel the absolute worst about is in the match with Tom versus Jader. I think it was versus Jader, when the question was, who wrote, oh my God, Sin City? And Tom had 3 answers. Frank Miller, Robert Rodriguez, or who directed? It was and Quentin Tarantino. And Jader had just Robert Rodriguez. And they took both answers. And Tom goes, he didn't say them all in character. And I should have had the knowledge. And I was like, and so I wrote to him in the private chat, do you want me to challenge? And he didn't see it because like the private, I mean, like he's in the moment. And it should have been challenged. Jader, and I love Jader, but it should have been challenged because on IMDb, it does say Robert Rodriguez and Frank Miller. And then like one of them is just like, if they didn't get the third, that's fine, but he should have had at least 2 of those 3 according to how it's listed. And they accept it. And I was like, this is so weird. They're accepting it. I guess maybe like they accepted both. So it must be up for debate. It must be like, I just, for whatever reason, if I had known the film myself or if I had known that myself, but part of the problem is that like the managers are not playing, because if we played, we wouldn't be any good. So like that, I don't think that that's exclusive to me, but something I realized is that like I needed to have, and Tom and I had a code when he wants me to challenge something. I needed to set that up. I needed to have like, all right, here are the reasons why you should break character, or in character, this is what you'll say if you want me to challenge something. Because then when Tom finally said, yeah, like he did later, like 2 questions down the line, said that should be a challenge. Then Courtney, who's like running the thing, I said, I wrote challenge, and she goes, it's too late. And I was like, you could see I was having this conversation. So then it turned into this whole thing where I felt so bad for Tom, because then I'm texting with Tom, I'm doing the private chat with Tom. And in the middle of that, he misses the next question. He like doesn't hear it. And he ends up winning the match. It all went fine. But like, I could see that he completely got deflated because I'm talking to him while a question's being asked. And then they asked him to like, then I'm like, let me in. And they're like, what's going on? And like Mark Ellis got very frustrated with me, but I was like, I have to advocate for my guy. This is totally unfair because I was talking to him. Can we get another question? I'm sorry to Jay, whatever. But I'm like, I'm talking to him about this challenge that was supposed to happen. And I'm like, fighting. And Mark's like, well, maybe we can do another question. He was trying to figure it out. And then they're like, no, we can't do another question. All right, so let's take it again. Can we recut you giving the wrong answer? And I could see Tom deflate. I was like, they're going to not only, and I was like, then I was like, let me back in. I was like, I'm not okay with this. It's totally humiliating that he misses this and you're going to make him retape him missing it. I was like, I'm not okay. Give me a second here. They're like, there's no precedent to give you a second. I'm like, well, I'm asking for a timeout. And I got to tell you, Jader was so chill about that all. He was such a cool customer about that. And I would have, if Jader was my player, I would have done the same thing. But he wasn't like, you're breaking the flow, lady. But I could tell that, like, and it was all because it was my actions. My player hadn't done anything wrong. It was my actions. I didn't know he wanted the challenge. I'm talking to him while the next question's being read in the private chat because he's saying, yeah, that should have been a challenge. That is the sort of thing that I have to take away is like, my players and I need to, being online distance is not an excuse. We have to talk about the stuff in advance. What do you need to have happen if you want a challenge? What are you going to say? What are the times that we feel like it's okay to break character? What stuff can come into the match and what stuff can't? That's the sort of thing. I just didn't set up parameters with my players that way. And I think that would have helped that completely because
and you see that this is what, like, a lot of people I see, like, oh, like, manager's not hard. You just have to speak and that's all. The structure needed to have a perfect chemistry between, players and manager is not just run off and do your thing, boy. No, you have to have a plan. You have to run on scenarios. You have to, know your player, like if they're doing ticks and, anything, you have to go in and out and think about it in advance, and that requires a lot of mental energy and willing to be able to establish that, right?
Yeah, it does. And I also feel like it wasn't as much the case with Tom. I mean, me seeing him deflate and like knowing that I've been the cause of that he had to now recut his mistake, because it was an absurd mistake. It was like, who starred and blah, blah, blah. And he like answered Will Ferrell. I mean, it was something that he would have never answered. It would be like, name a character from Sesame Street. And he said Will Ferrell. I mean, it was something he would have never answered. And I had to sort of know, like, we need to put, like, I needed to have him at least see me fight for him, even if I got shut down, even if Mark Ellis yelled at me. I needed him to know I was taking accountability for the mistake, that I did have his back. I caused that mess up. I was sorry, and I was going to fight for him. And that, I think, was enough to make him get his head. Because the truth is, when the players have had to fight these battles themselves, I think it's so much harder to get yourself out of that space. You think, like, I was in a bad space after that match for a while. And Mark Ellis ended up calling me and apologizing about what happened. And he was like, what happened had nothing to do with you. It was the last night's match. There's been a challenge, and we had a great talk, and like, nobody takes accountability like Mark Ellis. But that being said, in regards to that time with Tom, it was like, I just feel like the players, like, if they ever have to like navigate, like if he had to be in charge of challenges and then he had to have the fight, and then he has to say, well, this isn't then there's no way that you can then go like, all right, I'm ready to answer questions now. So I think the manager's role really is to like sort of fall on the sword and like take on that like energy, because when anger gets into the game because this or that, that's when like you just don't answer, you don't play as well. So I think like the manager's role is definitely about like also managing the player, like figuring out what the player needs, like emotionally or whatever, but also like having the battle so that they can just stay cool and like in the game. And I think that's something that, depending on whoever I get, I'm going to have to relearn that with people as well.
You want to hear something funny? The mic wasn't on that whole time.
No way.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, wow.
So smooth.